So, Cathrine, today we talk about your alternative routes that you take. You took this in this life of yours, and you had several. So it would be very nice to hear, actually, about one that resonated the most with you, and maybe it's a recent one, maybe it's an old one, but had a quite of a big impact on your life.
Yeah.
So you can tell us a bit more about that, and then we'll take it from there.
I would say there are, of course, not a lot, but there are, of course, a variation of different path taking. But I would say the ones that sort of maybe surprised me the most myself is the alternative route me and my husband were taking, well, it's 3 years from now, when we decided to move out of Copenhagen after 30 years in the city, and living together 30 years in the city, having kids, working, everything what life brings us in the city,
whole life.
and moving out here, an hour away from Copenhagen to something completely different.
So this was 3 years ago.
That was 3 years ago. And
how did you end up doing this, taking the alternative route in that sense?
When I think about it now, it was not just, of course, a matter of I want to live in the countryside. It was maybe after some years where life was, a lot of things happened. Work was, it was not hard, but it was not easy. The jobs were, not necessarily coming in by their own. I'm an independent. I work as an independent producer, but most of all, I think my personal life were in a place where I was in a crisis. Suddenly, I find myself being very anxious about life. I was being very anxious about my parents getting old. Maybe I was also anxious about my kids getting, grown up and maybe moving away, though I don't really think that's a bad thing. I sort of support, go out, live your life.
But nonetheless,
I was having a period where I was really feeling vulnerable and anxious. And when that happens, you get a sense of what is control. Control is something you think you have of life, but when you suddenly get the rug pulled out beneath you, you find out that control is not something you have. You don't have control of everything in your life. But it sort of brought my attention to where I was living. I was living in the city, which I like, but suddenly there was something in the city that disturbed me. It was too noisy. The neighbors were getting too close. Brugsen was bringing in groceries at 4 o'clock in the morning, like they've been doing for the last 20 years, but I hadn't been noticing. And suddenly I noticed. And I've always thought that, instead of me being disturbed by Brugsen, yelling, making complaints, don't drive you. I was thinking, they are supposed to bring in groceries, but I'm not necessarily supposed to be here.
That's a good way to see it, because some people would do the opposite.
Yes.
So you took already the alternative, going like, okay, I need to do something.
I need to do something about it.
Okay.
And then we had never discussed moving, but suddenly the idea of why don't we go look for a place in the countryside, wouldn't that be nice? Oh yes, that would be nice. And I put in an ad in a local Facebook group in a place like in this place, which is an hour away from Copenhagen, where we were not strangers to the place. We had a couple of friends here. My husband has been, he was raised here, a few miles away. Yeah. We had a summer house some years in the neighborhood. Yeah. We sort of were familiar with the area. And I put in an ad in the local Facebook group, just, well, if anybody wants to sell their place in a couple of years, let us know. And somebody actually responded to that.
Wow.
And I was asking the guy responding, I said, what are you trying to sell us? Can you send us some pictures? And he sent us some pictures, and we were like, yeah, it looks nice, maybe it's not big enough. So we never went and saw the place actually. And then a year more passed, and the urge was still there. And suddenly it was just like, we never really got around to see the place. And we went out and saw the place, and we were just like,
And was this the place?
this was the place.
Oh wow! A year later,
Yeah.
the place
Yeah.
waited for you
Yes,
to
the
actually
place
get in gear.
waited. And we were both arriving, looking, sensing, and it was just like, this is just meant, this is where we want
It
to
felt
stay. Yeah, it felt
home,
right
like
immediately.
immediately.
And immediately we were like, we want to buy this place. We didn't have to think. We didn't have to. We knew that we were financially able to do it, but we didn't have to, run around, think about it, talk about it. We just immediately
See 10
knew.
more,
No, no.
Go.
We just
No.
immediately.
You just
This
went.
is what we want to do.
Was it an instinctive
yes,
decision?
I think it was,
Yeah.
and we agreed on it.
Yeah.
So half a year later, we are moving. And we
voila.
just
And
went
you're
out
here.
and now we're here.
Yeah, I can totally see. So having a partner, it helps, and that you agree on. It's harder to drag someone along if they don't agree.
Yes.
Or you shouldn't actually drag anyone if they don't agree. That's another thing. So you had that, and then you decided to wrap everything in your life in Copenhagen and just move and see how it goes.
What happened
And
is
how
that
was
we kept the flat
Yeah.
in Copenhagen because we thought in the back of our heads, well, maybe it's healthy to have a way, a little door open if
Just in
this
case.
is completely crazy.
Yes.
So we
Okay.
and we were able to keep the flat because we could rent it out
Yeah.
to our kids actually. But after maybe a couple of months, it was like, no,
Obvious.
we don't. I didn't feel any urge coming back. I didn't feel any sadness of coming back, seeing the flat. So after a very short while, we were actually not any connected more
to it.
that.
Yeah.
I'm just happy it's there, and
Yeah.
our kids are living there. And I like coming to Copenhagen. I love the city. There's nothing wrong with the city. But there was something wrong in the me and Copenhagen connection.
Yeah, that resonates so much to me as well. When we moved from London, it was something between me and London. Us and London is not so much the city or us, it's the relationship has changed. It's like kind of like a long marriage or an affair, more like an affair, and it just dies out. At one point we go different ways, They do them and I go like, oh, I really don't get this anymore, I felt it like that after 23 years of living in London. So what was the most challenging or the most surprising thing for you when you moved out there? Because when you move and you have this decision, okay, I'm taking this alternative, I'm going to move to the countryside and live in a house and almost in the middle of nowhere, like you have neighbors but far away in that sense, and even if you knew people around, but still it's new for you, you haven't done this. So, and then you're a certain age in a sense that you have lived a life and you have expectations, and whenever we move we go like, this is how it's going to be, A, and actually the reality is probably B or C or something. So what was for you one thing that was surprising? You're like, okay, I assume this is going to be like this, but it actually didn't.
What actually surprised me the most was how easy it was for me.
Yeah.
How quick I adapted to the surroundings, to the people, to the way that you live out here, where you are in a very small community, so you have to sort of look up things going on. People don't, it doesn't, there's not like Copenhagen, everything is open 20, you have to sort of figure out that it's different.
Yes.
But how quickly I adapted to new surroundings. And I've of course been asking myself, why was it this easy? Maybe I was ripe, for the decision.
Yeah.
Or maybe, if something really resonates in you, you are so stimulated and so ready to reach out.
Yeah.
I knew that if I want to settle in, I have to make an investment. I can't sit back and wait for, life to happen.
Yeah.
I need to reach out.
Yes.
And I actually think, I'm not done being curious to other people. And I have no problems going to my neighbor, knocking on the door. I have no problems going to the local whatever sports club and
No.
knocking on the door, say, "Can I play badminton here?" It's so much easier than you think, and I think also, you know, being 55 as I am now, I can't. The challenges has been practical, nothing more than practical.
Yeah.
But as we also, you know, as I'm also very, very sure, if Morten didn't like it as much as I do, it would be so much different.
Yeah.
It's a we thing.
Yeah.
It's not a me
we
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a we thing. We are both just, you know,
In tune
thrilled
with
in the
this,
same
yeah.
way. We, you know, we love the same way. The how nature
Yes.
evolves. How we love. We both loves when it's winter. It's getting so dark out here.
Yeah.
And it's getting, you know, all the strange noises. You know,
Yeah.
and we're equally, you know, thrilled with it, and equally flexible around, you know, you do this and you do that, and if you have to go and stay away for a couple of days, you do that. I'm not
Yes.
afraid of being home alone
Yes.
while Morten is somewhere around. So I
Yes.
think that if we were not, if it was not a we thing, maybe it would have been more challenging. But I'm just really excited about how flexible you can be socially, and you can be, you know, making new relation when you're not as a young person.
Yes, yes, yes. I know
If
what
you
you
want
mean.
it.
Yeah, if you want
Yeah.
it. Because that would be the worry sometimes, that okay, then you have to start from zero to build relationships. But you have a lifetime that you understood and lived through it. So maybe it's easier, and you understand also yourself a bit more. So you can rely on, I have these skills, I can make it happen, you know? It's not so much like, does this fit me so well? It's mostly, can I make this work? I can make this work.
Look at how our relationship started. You know, we haven't been knowing each other but we
No.
didn't start from zero.
No.
We just immediately sort of,
Yeah.
is she a good person? Well, let's start from not zero now. Let's start drinking coffee, and then we drink more coffee before we sort of tell each
Yeah,
other
yes,
anything
exactly.
intimate
Yeah.
or anything personal. I know myself enough. When I meet a person I feel I can trust, I don't have any problem being personal with you.
Yes. Oh, thank
So
God.
you don't
Because
start
this is
from a
from
zero level.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
but of course, you have to be ready to be flexible
of course.
and be like, don't imagine you can control everything that happens. Let something happen to you as well, and look up things. You know,
Yes.
reach out.
Yes. So there is a combination of, you do an active thing, you're reaching out, you want the change, you want to do the alternative route, and you want to go that way, but you also allow the universe, people to come into
Yes,
your life and
exactly.
challenge your perception and take you in other kind of direction if it's needed, in that sense. So it's more like a dance. Like you do a step and the world or whatever, then it takes another step, and then you reorganize. But I think that's like a lifelong principle in my 47 years. I always had this feeling that it's not, I have immense confidence in me, but I know it's not just up to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And and this is the control, because oh dear Lord, I love also to control shit. So this idea that I also let things to happen, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be controlled. So yeah, and you're facing nature, which is probably also, when you move out into the countryside, you're faced with nature much more, of course, than in Lille Hill in Copenhagen. And then you learn that there are storms, but they pass, and you're okay, and you cope with it. So you're in touch with something that is naturally going for millennia.
Yeah.
We kind of, in an urban world we live in, we probably lost that touch as little is vanishing, and we kind of feel like we are the only powerful thing, but actually we are very little, isn't it, in the whole big scheme of things.
Yeah, you can say that. I guess you know, Danish nature is not really like nature, but
No,
it,
but
it is
still.
enough that you feel, you sense the changing of the year much stronger
Yeah.
because you're so close to it. You know, if I look this way, I can see the weather coming from miles of a distance. You don't see that in the city
No,
where
that's true.
your perspective
Yeah.
is, is hitting the neighbor's wall, right?
Yeah.
So the whole idea of that, you're just, you're tapping into something that is just going on. Whether I'm here or not, this place doesn't care.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is a relief, isn't it?
And that's
Somehow.
quite comforting.
Isn't
comforting.
it? Yeah, comforting,
Yeah.
yeah. And you get a different perspective. So in hindsight, what would you say that if someone, for example, is at the crossroads, there is a nagging feeling. As I hear you, there was a crisis, there was something itching there was something personally, and things have happened externally as well, but personally you felt like this is not the place. So we all have through our lives these moments where like, ugh, it's sticky and we don't know where to go. And some people stay stuck and just continue like this. And the whole point of this podcast actually is to give people the sense that there are alternatives if you look, and if there aren't, you create your own, but what I wanted to ask you is that if someone is now facing an alternative and it's blocked, what would be your advice to them? Go like, okay, you're faced with some sticky situation and you don't know to go A or B, and the A would be much more clear and more standard probably, or more you've seen your friends doing it the same way, your parents. But the B, it's the alternative, less trodden, less known. It's literally the unknown. You don't know too much about it. So what would you say to them in that sense?
It would be very easy for me to say, just go with the adventure.
Of course,
because maybe sometimes I would say we moved out here. That was an adventure, but we still knew that there were still a couple of things that told us maybe that would be not so bad, because there are at least a couple of people we know out here. We're not complete strangers. So there are a couple of relatives out here, and we're sort of familiar with the area. We know we like it. We've been here before. We like the atmosphere. We were also, of course, thinking about that it's an hour away from Copenhagen. It's not 3 hours away from Copenhagen. There are, of course, different, things that could sort of assure us that it was not a complete catastrophic road way down the hill.
Yeah.
So you, of course, you can investigate your adventure before you sort of embark on your journey.
Close your eyes and go I'll just take it.
Exactly.
So there is a bit of that kind of awareness. What the hell are we doing if we take this? It's not just like blind. Okay, I'm not doing A, I'm doing B because it sounds cool or whatever.
But if you sort of like have this sense of, I'm so curious about that, you decide to go on the journey, or you sort of, what will give me the right sign? There will never be the right sign.
Yeah.
It's a brain. It's actually you feel it in your heart, but in the end of the day, it's a brain decision. I decide I do this, and I don't know if I should go in the door A, B, or C. I just have to go in a door, and then I have to walk up the mountain, and then
it's true.
I will know what will happen, because I can't know before I start the walk.
Of course, because we can theorize and think about things, but we never really know until we actually put the step in that.
No.
And you have to own it as well. It's like, of course, I take responsibility about this decision and I'm going in, and then I'll see.
Maybe it was a wrong decision, and then we were coming back to Copenhagen,
and that's also fine.
Yeah,
it's not the end of the world.
No.
So this is what I take from you. Because we ran out of time, that's fine. But it would be that, yes, in order to take an alternative route, of course, you have a niche. There is a crisis. There is something underneath. You're not just going to be completely comfortable in your bed and go like, okay, I'm going to do B. There is something going on in your life. So first is that one. And then you investigate, You take, okay, is it A or B or C? And then you take one step. And if you're in partner, it's very good to be aligned with that partner, to take the whatever route you take out there. And then be flexible. Am I right?
Yes.
This is kind of thing. Is
be
to
open,
be flexible, curious, and probably you're stronger than you think, you know, to take these things. I hear you like that, that sometimes people go like, okay, I can't do this, is massive. But I think as humans, we have supernatural powers once we are faced with something important to take care of. And it looks like you're thriving.
I am.
Thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Cathrine. It was so nice.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's it.